I'm going to be walking through the roadmap. I'm also going to be highlighting some of the updates from the version 15 release that came out on Tuesday of this week. And then also highlighting what you can expect later in the year with the version 16 release. Okay, so I did want to start out with the attack vision. So attack was designed over a decade ago by defenders for defenders, and it is meant to empower users where they need it most. And so the vision for attack has always been to enable the broadest use across the widest spectrum of stakeholders. And so again, an event like this is really inspiring for us in the attack team to see how the community has integrated attack and how it's being used globally. And this vision is something that we really use to align attack's operation and growth. And so I'm going to be walking through how we're aiming to continue to make attack more accessible and actionable for every user. So in line with our vision, our 2024 goals are to bolster broader usability overall and enhance actionable defensive measures. So on the attack team, our team is not big. It's relatively small. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. All of us are practitioners. And so we actually use attack in our daily roles as well. So we understand firsthand how overwhelming attack can be when you're just getting started, or even when you're an experienced user and you want to start leveraging it for a different use case or a different platform. And so making the framework more intuitive and accessible is something really critical and prioritized for us. And so that's why we're going to be exploring things like scope adjustments this year, as well as platform rebalancing, structural modifications like ICS sub-techniques to really reflect the reality of the defender. And so some of the measures on this slide represent key focus areas, and I'll be covering a lot of these as well as a few others. Clearly, formatting on this was not a win. PDF is clearly the answer. So, like I just mentioned, on attack, we're continuously reevaluating the framework scope to more accurately reflect the reality of the threat landscape. And on enterprise this year, we're really going to be diving into this because the matrices and platforms on attack are conceptual. They are not real world structures. And so to better mirror the reality, we're assessing realignments in enterprise, also expansions, refinements of platforms. And this is all to better represent interconnected organizations, as well as how adversaries behave in those interconnected environments. And so our goal overall is to advance a more cohesive and integrated framework that is going to be providing a lot more functional use cases and create more opportunities for you to come up with cross-platform, cross-domain, multi-domain threats. So starting off strong with cloud, our cloud goal this year is to enable defenders, particularly those that are new to the space, to better navigate and leverage the cloud matrix. So this includes focusing on developing cloud analytics and then optimizing the balance between generalization and detail in the matrix, and then honing in on emerging and common current significant threats to cloud. So, with the frequency of identity-related intrusions across the domain, one thing that we have been focusing on is trying to reinforce and create more detailed techniques for identity-based attacks. The cloud team is also diving into exploitation of continuous integration, continuous deployment pipelines, and then the malicious use of infrastructure as a code. In the version 15 release, if you've had an opportunity to either go look at the change log or read the blog, you'll see that we expanded some resources and the CI/CD pipelines and infrastructure as a code area We added in some additional techniques focused on identity. And you can expect a lot more resources in that area in version 16. So our cloud analytics effort is actually going to be working in tandem with the defensive lead, and they're going to be focusing on outlining steps to detect specific behaviors and then providing additional context on what to find and collect. And you should start seeing some of those in the version 16 release. It's not going to cover every single cloud technique just yet, but the first launch of those will be in version 16. And then kind of a really big focus this year is evaluating how to best refine that balance in the between abstraction and specificity in the cloud matrix. And so this exploration is meant to assess if the platforms are broad enough to cover just a wide range of diverse cloud environments, as well as really significant threats, and remaining specific enough to inform defensive actions. And so we'll be providing more details on that exploration, what we think. We'll be looking for community contributions as well. And so you should expect some additional information around that getting closer to version 16. And circling back around, kind of back to the beginning, the end goal is to make navigating the cloud matrix more intuitive and to empower users to prioritize techniques that are relevant to their specific platforms. So the Mac and Linux goals are to equip practitioners with more robust countermeasures and help bridge information gaps. And a significant focus for both of these platforms this year is continuing to track down in the wild adversary behaviors and building out more Mac OS and Linux focused only sub-techniques. On the Linux side, we're going to be exploring privilege escalation and defense evasion to better align both what we're seeing in the field as well as what other defenders are telling us. So if you would like to submit anything that you're seeing, please feel free to. We're always depending on our community to provide a lot of the intel that we use. On the Mac side, we're going to be bolstering resources around primarily threats associated with elevated permissions and privilege escalation. And some of these updates are included in the version 15 release, but a lot of these are going to be featured in version 16. So the defensive goal this year is to upgrade detections, including converting detection logic into a new analytic format, and then restructuring data sources to help you better optimize your detection engineering. And so this detection enhancement effort, like I said, includes transforming detection logic into formats that are compatible with a variety of different security tools, including more consistent with real-world query logic language, such as Splunk. And the goal with these updates is to reflect that the data source itself is the data that you should be collecting, and to provide a more understandable format that aligns with everyday Defender tools. And this is just a snapshot of what some of that will look like. And as of Tuesday, some of these upgrades are featured in certain detections across the framework. And then this new analytic format will also be the one that will be applied moving forward to detections. We're also going to be restructuring our data sources for improved accessibility. So this means reworking data source definitions and then matching them to common use cases like sensor mappings. And this is so that you can more easily identify the tools and the events that give you insight into adversary activity, and then so you can opt into the data sources that best align with your specific needs. So the goals for ICS this year are the introduction of sub-techniques, asset expansion, and cross-domain integration. So like mobile and enterprise before it, ICS sub-techniques are going to break down techniques into more detail and provide nuance of adversaries' execution of a given technique. And this is going to enable hopefully more specific detections and mitigations, as well as provide a mode for the ICS matrix to grow in a sustained and stable way. And the technique restructuring is going to involve modifying the name, the scope, and then working towards integrating these techniques with other domains as well. So you can expect a sub-technique crosswalk to help you understand the rescoping and then how things map between deprecated and new techniques and sub-techniques. This year, the team is also going to be building out related assets, and assets in the ICS matrix are meant to provide a clearer picture of the device systems or platforms that a specific technique could target. And related assets are a concept that were introduced last year, and this is meant to link assets across sectors that share similar functions, capabilities, and architectural locations or properties, and highlight where they also might be susceptible to the same techniques. And so version 16 is going to feature those sub-techniques as well as the additional related assets. And then we're also going to be working on more in-depth definitions and refined mappings of technique relationships for different devices and systems. And then on the integration front, version 15 actually showcases some of the integration efforts that the ICS team has been making with the release of 4 cross-mapped campaigns that track IT to OT sequences and help you identify and visualize these cross-map campaigns a little bit better. I'm going to start talking faster. So goals for mobile this year include building out structured detections, expanding mitigations, and also exploring more proactive left of launch activity. So mobile structured detections were introduced last year, and these will continue to be built out along with mitigations. Most of these will be included in version 16. Some of this didn't also make it into version 15, along with the first mobile campaign in attack. And in the coming months, the team is going to be exploring how to integrate more proactive tactics into the mobile metrics to better mirror what adversaries are doing when they're targeting this domain. And so this effort is going to be examining pre-intrusion activities like active and passive reconnaissance and acquiring or developing resourcing for targeting. So the software goals this year are to increase usability for Navigator, which I'm sure many of you are just absolutely thrilled about, and to optimize attack workbench workflows in order to streamline group software and campaign releases, and then upgrading the taxi server to the next version. So the software team is working to fine-tune workflows in attack workbench, and this is going to enable swifter releases of group software and campaigns to better kind of reflect adversary activity as it's happening versus 6 months after we're seeing it. For Attack Navigator, the software team is also working to refine user experience by working on the SVG function, some of the other expert functions, so that it's easier for you to use, but then also your end user should receive a sleeker presentation. And finally, we're taking the taxi server to the next version. And so the current 2.0 is going to be sunsetted in December. So please make sure that you start using the appropriate links. And as we transition to the upgraded 2.1, you can access the documentation in our GitHub. So with the CTI team, the goal is to better reflect the reality of threat landscape by infusing more cyber criminal and underreported adversary activity into the framework. So, we have a lot of APTs in there. We don't have quite as much cyber criminal operations as what is happening currently and in the threat landscape. We're also going to be focusing on threat groups and regions that are not monitored as closely. And so, we see a lot of reporting for the Big Four. We're also going to be focusing on some of these threat groups that are in underrepresented regions like Latin America. And so a pivotal aspect of this entire effort is a gap assessment of group software and campaigns to help identify the disparities between what we're seeing in the field, what you're telling us you're seeing in the field, and then what is actually being represented in attack. And so we're also going to be collaborating across domains and ensuring that there are more cross-mapped campaigns featured in attack. And some of these criminal operations and underrepresented groups were included in version 15, so I encourage you to go check those out. They're very interesting. One more slide, Sunil. So again, apologies for the formatting. So coming full circle, so the core driver for attack is and has always been community engagement. And so we greatly appreciate every opportunity to coordinate with you, to collaborate with you. And every time that you're able to leverage attack in a way that allows you to enhance your defenses, each conversation you have with us, Slack, message, email, it really helps fuel attack's growth. So a heartfelt thank you to all of you from the attack team. And just in case you were wondering, yes, we are planning on hosting AttackCon 5.0 this year. Additional information should be coming out about that. And until then, thank you.